What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Shade Tree Certified YouTube channel. Today behind me I'm working on an HM400-5 and it is having a similar issue to the WA600 that I troubleshot in the last video with the CA2881 dosing fuel pressure low error code. So this is going to be a similar troubleshooting process to that last video, and in advance I apologize for the wind out here. There's no way for me to get out of it. I've ordered a microphone. Hopefully we'll be in a few days so I can finally kick this wind issue. It's just an issue we deal with here in Texas. It's just always windy during the summer for whatever reason. But anyway, let's get into this HM400 and dive in and see why this one has got a low dosing fuel error code. So as always, first thing we're going to do is key the unit on and get into the server side of the monitor and check on our error codes. And I apologize in advance for the beeping. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to turn this off, so it's the same as the wheel loaders. Down arrow, 1, 2, 3. Then I'll kick you over to your service side of your monitor. Go down here to abnormality record, electrical system abnormality, and we have fuel doser solenoid 1 servo error and dosing fuel pressure low error 1. So let's dive into that right quick. See what we get on. Transmission clutch disc abuse forward. 566 freaking occurrences, dude. Golly, man. That is terrible. So let's get rid of that beeping. And I've already looked at this machine a little bit. First thing I always do whenever I have these error codes is turn on the priming pump. The book calls it the fuel transfer pump, dosing fuel pump. It's all the same thing, but I call it just a fuel priming pump just because that's what I use. That's what it's used for most of the time, is priming the fuel filters, and it's just easy than saying dosing fuel transfer pump or whatever Komatsu wants to call it. So I'm going to turn on the dosing fuel pump. There we go. And the fuel pump is right down there behind this cover. And as you can see, it doesn't have that nice hum noise, and it doesn't have that kind of, I don't know, hissing noise of transferring the fuel around. So this is a similar failure to the fuel pump that was on that 600 the other day. And I actually just did a teardown on the fuel pump from that 600 because I got to this one and it's doing the same exact thing, same exact failure, I think, and I just want to know why. So I'll put that at the end of this video because this one is gonna have failed in the same exact fashion. So once I get this one replaced, I will put that basically failure analysis in this video. So I'm not going to go through all the other troubleshooting steps of checking the fuel filters and checking the SOV valve and all that stuff, because there's obviously not a problem with the SOV valve right now. I know it says dosing fuel valve servo error, but what the ECM sees whenever it turns on the SOV valve to let the dosing fuel through, it just doesn't see pressure on the dosing fuel pressure sensor, and it logs a fault for dosing fuel pressure low because the pressure is low, and then for whatever reason it logs a fault for the dosing fuel servo valve also because it thinks, well, it's obviously not working because I'm not seeing pressure, so it just logs both codes. On that 600 the other day, it just had a low dosing fuel fault, and for whatever reason they just don't coincide with the fault codes from machine to machine for whatever reason. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dosing fuel pump pulled off and get a new one put on there. First thing I'm going to do is pull this little cover right here off. There's a whole bunch of really nothing under this thing. I don't even know really why it's there. All it covers up is these little junction connectors right here. I guess it's just to keep oil and stuff from dripping down in here because your oil filters and fuel filters are just right there. So what I'm going to do now is, it sucks, complete pain in the ass, I'm going to have to disconnect this fuel supply line just to get it out of the way and get myself a little bit more room to work. Disconnect this line, take that P-clip off, and probably that one, fold that line up out of the way. I'm above the level of the fuel tank right now, so I'm not going to have to cap this, worry about fuel spilling out anywhere. And then I'm going to take that cover off on top of the dosing fuel pump, and then I'll disconnect the lines off it and get that dosing fuel pump off and get the new one on. Okay, so I've got that cover off, as you can see, and it does hold true that Komatsu still runs that wiring harness, this one right here, up over and then back down behind and all the way over to behind over here to plug it in 1.5 feet from the freaking pump. I always dread doing these freaking 140 engines in HM400s and WA500 loaders and D155 dozers, because I don't know why Komatsu can't get it out of their freaking thick head that you don't need to run the wiring harness as long as the pigtail is and then plug it in over here. You could just bundle it up right there, or better yet, make the pigtail shorter so you don't have to take loose 3 P-clips to get over there and unplug it. Probably I'm gonna have to reach in from the bottom and unplug it over there. So I'm gonna take the pump off, take 1, 2, 3 P-clips off, unplug it, and then disconnect the fuel on it and get the new one put in there, hopefully relatively quickly. I've got the new pump in here, and just for the general public's knowledge, it's easier to get to the connector over here and this P-clip, right there. It's easier to get to that P-clip and the connector from the bottom. It doesn't look like it, but there's quite a bit of room up under there, so you can reach up from the bottom and unplug that connector real easy. Like, I struggled through getting it from the top, and then I thought, well, let me try it from the bottom, and you can reach it just fine from the bottom. So anyway, so I got this new pump put on. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up this hose clamp, and then tighten up the these banjo bolts here. And another tech tip is leave your pump loose until you've got your banjo bolts started, because the factory pump, that little fuel hose down here was actually bent a little bit because the pump was kind of kicked down. So if you tighten up your pump, you may screw yourself with getting your banjo fittings lined back up. I just left it loose, and I'm about to tighten everything back up. So I'm gonna get everything tightened up, get all these guards and crap put back on, and then we'll test it right after that. All right, well, I got the new pump put on. That was a complete pain in the ass. I forgot how terrible that is to do on these HM400s. But anyway, now it's time to test, so I'm gonna hit my switch and listen. There we go. Get the air out of it. That's mo better. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Listen to that. We'll start it again. Nice. That's how it's supposed to sound, folks. There we go. Still got a good amount of air in it, sounds like. Let that air get worked out of it. So you can hear that relief valve on the side of this injector pump right here. Yeah, you can hear that relief valve on the side of that pump, and that just means that the transfer pump is moving the fuel. It's sucking the fuel up through this fresh fuel hose, back down to the pump, and it's sending it through the main filter, out of the main filter, and then into the fresh fuel side of the high pressure pump, filling the pump case up with fuel, and then it's forcing it out through this relief valve right here. And that little meep sound that you hear, I know my sound effects are awesome. That little sound that you hear is that relief valve bleeding fuel off when that pump is running. So it'll actually do that also when the engine's running, because the gear pump is going to be forcing fuel up into the case of the high pressure pump as well. But obviously with the sound of the engine running, you're not going to be able to hear it. So I'm going to get my tools picked up right quick, and then we're going to check the oil on this thing. Actually, you know, we don't want to forget to do that. Where is it? There it is. So that's engine idling. Let's turn it around to engine stopped, and it's good. So I'm going to shut this hood and get my tools picked up right quick, and then I'm gonna start this thing. So I've got the machine turned on, and I've got the real-time monitoring pulled up, and it did turn on the dosing pump. It's got dosing fuel pressure already pulled up on the monitoring. So what I'm gonna do now is go over here to diagnostic tests by going to 08 diagnostic tests and do active regen for service, and then put it in regen for service, and then go to real-time monitoring on the regen screen, and pull up and watch my dosing fuel pressure. And I'm not going to sit here this whole time and make you listen to this beeping noise, but you're going to pull up you're basically going to pull it up and put it into a manual stationary region, and then watch this dosing fuel pressure right here. And whenever this thing goes to start dosing, it'll kick that pressure up to 150, 175 psi roundabout, and this fault code should self-clear off of there. So I'm going to sit here and wait on that. I'm not going to make you listen to this beeping noise any more than I have to. And once it clears out, I'll check back in. As you can see, this thing is dosing fuel now. My dosing pressure kicked up there to 184. And then right now it's dosing. The pressure is going to drop down, then it's going to come right back up. And this thing's dosing pretty hard right now. It's dropping the pressure about every 5 to 10 seconds. It's dosing fuel. So it's not anything out of the ordinary to see that pressure drop down into the 130s, just as long as it rebounds back up to where it was relatively quickly within a couple seconds. If it's taking 5 seconds for it to rebound, then either A, your pump is getting weak, or B, either your SOV valve is hung partially closed or your drain valve is hung partially open. So that's a good sign. We've got good pressure. That means our SOV valve and drain valve are working correctly, and our pump is doing its job. So I'm going to sit here and let this regen run out fully, because this thing has been logging this fault for a good while now. And whenever it's logging this fault, it disables the regen. So obviously, if you're not regenning, you're stacking soot in the DPF. So I'm going to sit here and make sure it completes a regen successfully. After that, I'm going to go ahead and tear apart that old pump that I took off. My curiosity got the best of me, and I'm going to go ahead and tear it apart just for sake of looking, just to see if it's the same failure as the old one. And if it is, hopefully Komatsu recalls some of these pumps. If they don't, then we're just kind of stuck with where we're at. But I wish there was an address I could send all these failed parts to that I see that happen the same over and over and over and over again, the same exact failure, like wiring harnesses on D71s. I just got done making an update video on that one. I've seen 5 or 6 machines fail the same exact way. And then obviously now we've got this priming pump issue. It's probably been 3 months since I changed the priming pump. So, I mean, granted, there's a little bit of a variation on what kind of jobs we get sent to. I've been tied up on some pretty big jobs lately, but it just, the luck of the draw. I've replaced 2 pumps. I replaced one on Friday, this past Friday, and today's Monday. I did another one again today. So it's just kind of the luck we get. But anyway, I'm going to sit here and wait for this regen to get done. After it's done, I'll go tear that pump apart with you. So I'm not going to get super in-depth, crazy detailed with taking this fuel pump apart, as I already did it on the other video. Gosh, it's freaking wind, dude. But anyway, you have to destroy these things to take them apart. I just busted the solder connections on that pump. But like I said, I already took apart one on the other video. I just want to confirm my suspicions on this pump. And I really don't care about saving it now that I know that there's no way it's ever going to run again. So I'm going to have to use both hands to basically peel this section of the metal off and then pull that whole pumping assembly out of there. So I'm going to pause right quick and get that thing taken apart. So same type of issue as the other one. I tore down. You can see in there that there's some, looks like brass particles. It doesn't look like dirt, but I really don't know where brass is coming from inside this pump. And then right here also, you can see that I'm spinning the shaft, and the pumping unit inside the pump is just sheared off right there in that little plastic coupling, just like the old one. So that seems to be what our common failure point is going to be from here on out with these. So I'm going to put all that junk back in the box, throw it back here for safekeeping, and get on the road, because that is a wrap for this one. So that's a wrap on this HM400 behind me. As you saw, that was a pretty simple repair. It was the exact identical repair to that WA600 we did on what was Friday. Today's Monday. So it's just the luck of the draw that I got 2 transfer pump jobs, 2 exact same complaints, the exact same failure, the exact same root cause of failure, given that drive cog inside the pump broke. And the only thing I can come up with where that brass is coming from inside that pump is there has to be some sort of copper tin solder in there, like copper windings, tin solder, and that stuff melted down mixed together, and I think that's how you get brass or bronze or whatever. And that stuff is what the pump ate. The pump locked up and then just stripped that little plastic drive cog off, and that's the only thing I can come up with really after tearing down both of those pumps. There's nothing really seemed melted. Nothing. There's no way for any outside contamination to get into the pump, because it has to go through the pre-filter first, and then it also has a inlet screen on that pump, and the pieces of brass were bigger than the size of the inlet screen, so it had to have come from inside the pump. So that's the only thing I can come up with. We got this machine up and running, so I'm gonna turn this thing loose. As always, folks, I greatly appreciate you tuning into the channel and watching my videos. Please like, subscribe, share, send it to all your friends, send it to your family. Give me some constructive criticism if you feel like there's something I can improve on. But other than that, greatly appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time on the Shade Tree Certified YouTube channel. Thanks.